Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole, and normally I would come to you today with the books that I have been reading and enjoying. And today, instead, I'm coming to you with all the books that I've recently DNF'd. And there's quite a few. And I'm going to talk to you about what they are and why I've DNF'd them and basically what happened. And there's a variety of things that went on in the last couple of weeks with DNFing all these books. So let me tell you about it in brief. There are about 5 different reasons that I DNF these books. They range from being that I was warned. You guys told me I should just DNF the book, and I didn't. I admit that. I also don't know what I was thinking in buying one of the books to begin with. There was a book that I just forgot that I was in the middle of reading, and then there was also a book that I actually lost in the middle of reading it. And that really told me a lot about my reading experience with that book. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. Book number one. This is the book that you guys warned me about. You told me every time I mentioned this book, you might want to pass on that. You might want to pass on the author. I was like, well, I own it. I'm going to read it anyway. It'll be fine. It wasn't fine. A Stranger in a Strange Land. And if you have read any works by Robert A. Heinlein, like people comment about this a lot about his work. This book was published in, I believe, the 1970s, as was most of his work, like 70s, 80s, that kind of thing, and falls into the weird trope that was going on at that time of like being very toxically male centered and having a lot of very negative portrayal of women, and let's be honest, there were weird portrayals of women at best, even at that time. Like, there's no excuse. It was more widely spread. Women are there, but like they're over sexualized, they're treated in very demeaning ways. They're only there for really one reason. Weird ways of flirting as well comes up a lot, if you can even call it flirting. It was definitely considered flirting back when this was written, but even then, it would have only worked with some women. There is one character in this book that refers to every female as doll or baby or little girl or whatever. And if you think that's okay, then go ahead and read this book. But if you have a problem with that, it's never ending, non stopping, and it goes from like to worse. And I just reached one point in reading this book that I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't need any more. And you guys told me that was gonna happen, and, I owned it. I wanted to try it. I did, and then I DNF'd it. Book number 2. I don't know what I was thinking when I bought this book. It is a TBR vet. I've owned it for a while. Was I a different reader person then? No. I think I was just less knowledgeable, in all fairness. Since buying this book multiple years ago, I have learned that I don't like gratuitous violence in my books. And, so I'm not surprised that I ended up DNFing Battle Royale. I I mean, if you wanna talk a book about a book with a lot of violence, I mean, again, I was like, "I own it. I'm not gonna DNF it without trying it." I guess I sort of unintentionally did a reader unhaul, and it's being unhauled, and the reason why, it is just gratuitous violence. If you don't know what this book is about, this is basically The Hunger Games meets Lord of the Flies meets an Inner Circle of Hell altogether. There's this government program that once a year chooses a random classroom of children to go on an island and fight to the death because the government is studying something, probably how to make psychopaths. And if that sounds interesting to you, be prepared. It's very violent. People died before they even started. That's not a huge spoiler. There's plenty of other people left to die. And it was intriguing. It was an interesting premise. I did want to know what the government really thought they were going to get out of this experiment, but not badly enough to have to watch each individual person go through that experience. Same reason I didn't read The Hunger Games. And if I had have known that that's how I feel about violence in books, I would have never bought that. But again, at the time I bought that book, that was not something I knew about myself. Had to take a half a second break there because my phone kept ringing. Book number 3. This is a book that it turns out I just didn't care. I didn't care about the premise, I didn't care about the narrator, I didn't care about the story, and so I was like, "Why am I reading this?" I'm not. And that book is the book of Ebenezer LePage. I have been wanting to read this for a while. I thought it was a premise that I would really enjoy. The setup is an old man who has lived on a Channel Island for pretty much his entire life, and he is now in his 80s. Yeah, he's in his 80s, and he's going back and telling us about his life and growing up and just his experiences. And as the book got going, I realized I really don't care. And not specifically about this old man, but I realized, and I've come to realize again over time, that there are just certain slice of life stories that when that's all there is to the story, I tend to just not care. I don't know why. Like, am I a selfish person that just isn't interested in other people's life experiences? I don't think so. But I'm not when they're written in that first person narrator kind of way where we're literally just going with them day by day, and somehow it makes it worse when it's as a flashback, and that's largely what this book is. I've also found that there's a tendency when you have older protagonists doing this, that they can tend to get whiny, just like teens can be. And I don't know that that's a fair description of older people. Like, I have a lot of older people in my life who tell really exciting, enjoyable stories. And I've read other books that are like that. Like, I'm thinking of The Hearing Trumpet, that has a really exciting, interesting octogenarian. And I think this is a book that some people would definitely enjoy more than I did. The writing style is really good. It's just, I think you really have to like that type of trope and story, and that's not for me, so I moved on. Sadly, I moved on to book 4, which is the book that I just flat out forgot about. I was listening to this as an audiobook, and I thought that was gonna work really well. The writing style was actually really good, and I was enjoying it, but then I realized it had in it 2 tropes in writing or in storytelling that I don't like. One, again, is the whole slice of life thing, and then the other one is the slice of a family life that where the family just can't seem to stop arguing with one another, and they all hate each other and they don't get along. And this is something that this year I realized I really don't like in books. And so I eventually forgot that I was reading and listening to A House for Mr. Biswas, which is somewhat surprising to me because a lot of people love this book. And I can see why. The writing style is really good. He tells a good story for what it is, but I just am not that person. I don't want to hear about every argument you've ever gotten in with your wife, your family, your mother-in-law, your sister-in-law, and everybody because you're all just sort of crafty, mean people. I don't know what that is, but I just don't enjoy those stories, and that's a lot of what this story is about. There are some other interesting elements in the story. The whole premise of it is that he is, again, towards the end of his life, reflecting back on how he got all the things that are in his home and how he got his home. But I didn't realize that it was going to be through a lot of like negative life experiences, and not just negative. It's not like everything has to be positive and puppies and rainbows and kittens and butterflies, but I just don't want to hear about every hateful experience you've had with your family members. If you like that kind of family drama, family saga, like intermarriage dynamic craziness, again, maybe you would like that more than I did. Finally, the last book, I had something happen to it that I've never had happen to me before while reading a book, which is I lost the book. And not like I left it somewhere, like I lost it in my own house. And my house is pretty reasonably clean and tidy, and there's a place for everything, and everything goes in its place. And I literally have no idea what I did with the book. Like, I found it. The book is The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. Again, another really well-liked book. And what happened? How did I lose this book? I'm still not totally sure. What happened was I put the book down for a couple of days so that I could start a buddy read. And I was intending on going back to it because I knew the buddy read wouldn't take very long, and it didn't. And I actually planned on continuing to read this during the buddy read, but not on the first day. The second day, I forgot about it. The third day, I couldn't find it, and then it took me a couple more days to find it, at which point I then started the audiobook. Then as I was listening to the audiobook, I thought about the fact, what does it mean that I lost this book in my own house and really only semi cared to find it and really couldn't? Um, I decided that it meant I really didn't enjoy this book. And I think it was the pacing. The pacing felt very off to me and very slow. And while I was really interested in the topics discussed in this book, it just wasn't done in a way that kept me wanting to pick the book up, and so apparently I eventually put it down somewhere that I forgot all about it. It went from the book that I was reading to the book I least wanted to think about. Now, in all fairness, I did end up finishing The Dispossessed, so there's that, but it was a bit of a grind towards the end. I think it finished me more than I finished it, so I will talk about that book next week when I actually do a weekly reading wrap up of the books that I actually did read and finish this month, because I did read and finish quite a few books, and I really liked them, which takes me back to the idea of why I DNF books. The reason is because there's so many good books out there and in here on my shelves that I haven't read yet, that to me it's just not worth it sometimes pushing through a book that I'm just not enjoying and that I know the reason and can identify the reason that I'm not enjoying it. A lot of it just starts coming down to, is this something about the book that is going to change? Is the pacing in this book going to change? Maybe, which is why I finished it. Spoiler, it didn't. Um, is the family drama in this book going to change? Not likely. And even if it did, I just could not convince myself to continue listening to it long enough for that. Is the storytelling in this book going to happen? And is he going to stop talking about his daily life? No, because that's the whole premise of the book. Is this book going to get less violent? Yeah, on the very last page. And this one, no, she was gonna be baby cakes the rest of the time. There's how that was all going to go, and yeah, that's usually the reason that I DNF, is just I realize at some point that there is something about the book that I don't like, and it's not going to improve, and I could move on to something I enjoyed better, and that's exactly what happened for me this month. Let me know if you DNF books, or do you just fight it out until the very bitter end, and how many times is that actually worth it for you? All right, that's it for me today. This is a short video, but I just wanted to let you know what was happening because I was impressed by it all. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, I'll talk to you next time. Bye.